So the JBL Pulse 5 has an amazing looking light feature that's really going to liven up your bedroom, or is just going to look really cool while it's on your porch at night. However, with the Pulse 5, you're mainly paying for the light feature. Now, yes, the Pulse 5 does have an improved speaker setup, which has improved its instrument separation. However, if sound quality is very important to you, then you're still going to want to go with either the JBL Charge 5 or the Flip 6. Nonetheless, let's see how the Pulse 5 stacks up to its older brothers. Regarding pricing, the Pulse 5 has a retail price of $250, and I'm going to be honest, that is a little steep and you're mainly paying for looks. Whereas with the Flip 6, this speaker retails for $130, but can be found on sale from time to time, and the Charge 5 has a retail price of $180, and it also likes to go on sale from time to time. Nonetheless, I like and recommend all of these speakers, and if you want to pick any of these speakers up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch shelf down below. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great, and if you've been watching me for a while, you know I can be very particular, so I'll only set my name on something that I'm really proud of. Now first, let's talk about the design of these speakers. Now the Flip 6 is a small portable Bluetooth speaker, and it's very easy to carry this speaker in your backpack, whereas the Charge 5 is a medium-sized speaker. Now taking the speaker on the go with you is easy enough, but it's not as convenient as the Flip 6. But then there's the Pulse 5. Now the Pulse 5 is also a medium-sized speaker, but it's a vertical speaker. Now taking the Pulse 5 on the go with you is also easy enough, and you can hang it from places thanks to its new built-in loop. But just keep in mind that this speaker is noticeably denser than these other two speakers, weighing in at 3.2 pounds, whereas the Charge 5 weighs in at 2.1 pounds and the Flip 6 weighs in at 1.2 pounds. Now durability-wise, all of these speakers are rocking an IP67 rating, meaning that they're all waterproof up to 30 minutes in 1 meter in water. Basically, if any of these speakers get wet, rained on, or dropped in a pool, they'll be fine. Now with both the Flip 6 and Charge 5, both of these speakers have subtle designs to them, and they have mostly fabric wrapped bodies, which do a great job of standing up to constant abuse from bumps or scrapes. Whereas with the Pulse 5, this speaker has an acrylic body. Now after conducting a few stress tests, I found that this acrylic body is fairly durable. Now yes, you are going to get some deep scratches if you were to drop this speaker from 2 feet off the ground onto pavement, but more importantly, this acrylic body doesn't shatter very easily. So this acrylic body also does a good job of standing up to constant abuse, but I would still be gentle with it. However, this now leads us to the light feature on the Pulse 5. Now the Pulse 5 has a very dynamic looking light feature that's going to look amazing either indoors or outdoors at night. However, during the daytime, it can be hard to see this light feature if you're outside. But nonetheless, this light feature is very impressive, and you have a lot of different styles to choose from. However, just keep in mind, if you do decide to use this light feature, it is going to take its toll on the battery life. But now let's talk about battery life. The JBL Pulse 5 has an advertised battery life of 12 hours. However, this advertised battery life of 12 hours is with this speaker playing at 50% volume and with this light feature dimmed down a bit. However, real-world use with this speaker playing at 80% volume, which is a really good listening volume for indoor use, the Pulse 5 is good for about 6 to 7 hours of playback time. However, just keep in mind, battery life on this speaker really varies depending on how you use it. If you use it at a higher volume, that's going to drain your battery life faster, and also depending on the brightness of the light feature, that's also going to drain your battery life a little faster. Whereas with the Flip 6, this speaker has an advertised battery life of 12 hours, but real-world use with the speaker playing at 80% volume, the speaker is good for about 8 hours of playback time, which is not bad at all. And finally, there's the Charge 5. Now, the Charge 5 has the same 7500 mAh battery that's found in the Pulse 5. However, since the Charge 5 doesn't have a light feature to power, the Charge 5 has an advertised battery life of 20 hours. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 80% volume, which is noticeably louder than 80% volume on the Pulse 5, the Charge 5 is good for about 10 hours of playback time. So overall, when it comes to battery life, the Charge 5 is the way to go because the light feature on the Pulse 5 really does take its toll on the battery life. Now, when it comes to charging these speakers, all of these speakers charge via a USB-C port. Now, this USB-C port is the only port that you'll find on both the Pulse 5 and Flip 6. And unfortunately, you can't use any of these speakers with a wired connection because none of these speakers have an audio jack, and you can't use the USB-C port on any of these speakers as a wired connection, and you can't use any of these USB-C ports to charge your own devices, like how you can with the USB-C port found on the Extreme 3. However, the Charge 5 does have a USB-A output so that you can charge your own devices. Now, personally, I think it's great and all that the Charge 5 has a USB-A output, but personally, I really wish that this was a USB-C port because most phones these days are now coming included with USB-C cables. But when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, all of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time so that you and a friend can both be DJ. All of these speakers have zero latency across the board when watching movies or videos on your phone, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device. And when it comes to audio codecs, all of these speakers only have support for SBC. But now let's talk about actually listening to music with these speakers. Now, with both the Flip 6 and Charge 5, we have a frontward firing woofer, a frontward firing tweeter, and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides. The main difference is the Charge 5 is just bigger. Now, the Pulse 5 also has a woofer and tweeter setup, except its woofer and tweeter shoot upwards and the woofer and tweeter are stacked on top of each other. And instead of having dual passive radiators, the Pulse 5 only has one passive radiator that shoots downwards. Now, the good thing about having a woofer and a tweeter on all of these speakers is that it helps with instrument separation because the woofers handles the mids and the tweeters handle the highs. But so that you can see what I'm talking about, let me just show you with the Charge 5.
That we were meant to be. We kept running from the shadows in the night, realizing it was not worth the fight. Moving on alone was what felt right, 'cause we were never meant to be. Dum dum da dum day, dum dum da dum day, dum dum da dum day.
So like you just saw, the woofers handle the mids and the tweeter handles the highs, which helps these speakers sound more open and detailed. However, I do have to point out that since the Pulse 5 is an upward firing speaker, it's going to sound best while indoors because you're going to want to have a ceiling to have the sound to bounce off of. Whereas with both the Charge 5 and Flip 6, since these are frontward firing speakers, you're going to be able to more easily aim the sound at you, which is something you're really going to want for outdoor use. Nonetheless, we're going to jump into the sound test. All of these speakers are playing with their stock EQs and they're all playing at 75% volume.
You are my lucky charm. I hold you close in the night in my arms. And when we open our eyes, my worries fade away. 'Cause you gave me your heart in the light of day. The light of day. you are my lucky charm. I hold you close in the night in my arms. And when we open our eyes, my worries fade away. 'Cause you gave me your heart in the light of day, in the light of day.
So like you may have just heard, all of these speakers sound good. However, the Pulse 5 is the brightest sounding speaker here, and I feel that it sounds the most narrow. Now, the bright EQ on the Pulse 5 isn't a problem because you can easily go in and adjust its EQ through its app. Personally, I like to raise the bass by 2 clicks and I like to lower the treble by 1 click. And I like to do the same thing with the Flip 6 because I also feel that it sounds a little bright with its stock EQ. But with the Charge 5, I like to use it with its stock EQ. But you can also go in and adjust its EQ to your liking. But sound signature aside, the Pulse 5 just doesn't sound as open as these other two speakers. With the Flip 6, there's just more detail in the mids and the highs aren't as sharp, and with the Charge 5, it just sounds fuller because it has more bass. But from a performance standpoint, the Pulse 5 gets decently loud at max volume. However, the Flip 6 gets just as loud as the Pulse 5, if not a little louder at times. And then there's the Charge 5, which easily is just noticeably louder than both the Pulse 5 and Flip 6, and simply put, has more bass. So overall, sound quality wise, the Pulse 5 sounds good. However, the Flip 6 still manages to slightly outperform the Pulse 5, and when compared to the Charge 5, the Pulse 5 just can't keep up because the Charge 5 sounds more open, it sounds fuller because it has more bass, and it gets louder. But also, since we're talking about listening to music with these speakers, I also have to point out that with the Pulse 5, there are no longer onboard media controls on it. So if you want to adjust the volume of your music, or if you want to skip through your music, you're gonna have to do so from your phone, which I feel is very inconvenient, whereas with these other two speakers, they do have media controls on them. I don't know, I'm just a little annoyed that JBL removed the media controls on the Pulse 5. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, all of these speakers are using JBL's Partyboost, meaning that you can pair them up to other JBL Partyboost speakers, like either a Boombox 3, a Boombox 2, an Extreme 3, a Charge 5, a Pulse 5, a Pulse 4, a Flip 5, or to a Flip 6, and you can have up to 100 speakers paired together, which is obviously just overkill. Now, if you're going to be mixing and matching speakers, then your speakers are all going to only play in sync. If you want to get left and right stereo sound going, you need to have 2 of the exact same speakers. So if you want to get left and right stereo sound going with the Pulse 5, then you're going to need another Pulse 5. Or if you want to get left and right stereo sound going with a Flip 6, then you're going to need another Flip 6. And if you want to get stereo sound going with the Charge 5, then you're going to need another Charge 5. Unfortunately, if you were to pair your Pulse 5 to a Pulse 4, your speakers are only going to play in sync, and if you were to pair your Flip 6 to a Flip 5, then your speakers are only going to play in sync as well. And also, keep in mind, you cannot pair any of JBL's smaller Partyboost speakers to any of JBL's larger Partybox speakers. Now, even though there is some fragmentation that I feel that you need to look out for, I do feel that if you plan on buying multiple speakers and if you plan on constantly pairing them together, I do think that JBL is the way to go because Partyboost just works. You just press one button on each speaker, they'll automatically sync up, and they do so quickly, and skipping is never an issue like with some other speaker pairing protocols out there. So with all that being said, the JBL Pulse 5 is an amazing looking speaker. Its light feature is very dynamic and it's very impressive. Now, even though the Pulse 5 has an upgraded speaker setup, which does help it sound more open than its predecessor, with the Pulse 5, you're mainly paying for the light feature. Both the Flip 6 and Charge 5 continue to sound better than the Pulse 5, and also due to the Pulse 5's light feature, its battery life isn't as good as these other two speakers. Now, the Flip 6 is a solid little speaker that's great for constantly taking on the go with you. However, the Charge 5 continues to be one of my favorite mid-size speakers to recommend, simply because of its impressive instrument separation and impressive real-world battery life. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.